Hey everyone, so this is Married at First Sight, Season 9, episodes 11 and 12. Episode 11 is called Secrets of the Past, where basically everyone eventually starts going to each other's hometowns um, and um, go visit, or well, they don't. I don't think they go to everyone's hometown because they only showed a select few of them. So, but if they did, they didn't show it. But like I said, anyways, before all that though, all the couples go to a NASCAR raceway, except for Iris and Keith because they can't make it. I don't remember who invited them to everyone to go to that. I think they said, but I don't remember who. Um, and so while everyone's there, what happens is the instructor is telling everyone what they need to do when they go, because everyone's going to go into a NASCAR and drive it um, on the racetrack and all that stuff. So the instructor is trying to tell them what to do and how to act accordingly in the car so they don't end up spinning out and getting into an accident, or whether that's like flipping over or causing like the engine to burst on fire or whatever. So hopefully they won't have any of that stuff going on. And as he's trying to do that, Elizabeth takes it upon herself to start talking over him and basically say, "Oh, well, I spent my whole life doing this and yada yada yada," and she's just unnecessarily talking over the instructor who does this for a fucking living every single damn day. So she's not letting the others listen to what the expert in this entire thing tell them to do, which I found very annoying and inappropriate for her to do, because like I said, this is an expert who knows what he's talking about because he does this every single day of his life. So it's like, can you please be quiet and let the instructor talk? And that's what Jamie should have done next. Instead, what he does is he tells her, "Would you just shut up and let him talk?" I mean, and he basically says, "Would you just shut up?" like several times, which is not cool because it's like that's not how you talk to somebody. I don't care who it is, whether it's your wife, your friend, your child, your mother, your father, your aunt, your uncle, your sister, who the fuck ever. You don't talk to somebody like that. And while I understand, like, she was talking over an expert in this field, that still doesn't give you carte blanche to just fucking say what you want to whoever, whenever you want, and say it however you want. And it's just, that's not cool. And it's, I mean, and pretty much, Matt and Greg were feeling the same way. And I think even Deanna said something like a confessional, and they were like, "That's not how you talk to somebody. I don't care who, like, especially not your fucking wife." So, which is true, because it's like, while I understand that she is talking over the expert, you still can't just talk to anybody any old way just because you're irritated. I mean, yeah, I get that you're irritated. I mean, but it's like he gets so irritated so easily, and it's like, honestly, what you literally could have done in that second was just say, "Elizabeth, can you please let the instructor talk? Can you just please let him talk and actually, explain how to do this so that none of us can mess it up and, uh, get ourselves hurt." That's exactly what he could have just said. He didn't have to he didn't have to be rude and say, "Will you just shut up?" He didn't have to say that because, I mean, and that's part of the reason why when they get into arguments, you know, Elizabeth retaliates and hits him back below the belt because he's being unnecessarily rude just because he's irritated, and it could have been squashed when he could have just said it nicely. Because it's like, anyways, so as a result of that, Elizabeth sits out of participating in the NASCAR racing. So, later that night, Deanna and Greg are talking, and they're, trying to talk about why they were matched. And so Deanna asked Greg if he asked for like any specific physical types when he was talking to the matchmakers before their wedding. And I think he said yes, but he didn't necessarily go into what he may have gone into what they were, but I completely forgot. Because I watched this particular episode like over a week ago, and I didn't finish episode 12 until like yesterday. But anyway, so he then asks, what are our differences? And so she's about to say something, and he interrupts her, which is not cool because you specifically asked her what you think their differences are, and yet you're interrupting her, basically asking her to just, fishing. It sounds like you're just fishing for a compliment, meaning like, you want to ask her, you want her to tell you what your differences are, but how that complements each other. So, what do you want, a compliment or the differences? And why are you talking over her when you specifically asked her for her opinion about the differences? So, yeah, it was kind of weird. So then over the next, few days, Dr. Viviana meets with all the couples. The first one being Keith and Iris. And so she basically shows them how they're lacking in, physical intimacy. And talking about physical intimacy. And she shows them the clip of where they were doing the fishbowl exercises, where the question was asked, how would you like your spouse to initiate sex? And Iris doesn't even answer. Keith, bails her out, essentially. And so Viviana's like, well, say something along the lines of how it would be to fantasize about your first time together, because they're the only ones by this point, and even by episode 12 still haven't had sex. So and it's clear that Iris hasn't really been that vulnerable. So it's like at some point you kind of have to start getting vulnerable with your spouse, because whether or not she likes it, sex is a big part of a relationship. How you two can communicate sexually, how you are pleased sexually, and how the other partner is pleased sexually is important. Because if you can't manage to A, get pleased yourself, and B, please your partner in a satisfactory way, it's never going to work. Because I've said this before, and I've said this for the last several years, most humans are sexual. I mean, I get there are people who are asexual, but that's not the norm for 99% of the population in this world. 99% of humans are sexual. And if they're not pleased sexually, they're gonna feel neglected. And because of that, they're gonna feel like maybe, oh, I should go out to find someone else who will please me sexually. Not saying that that's right, obviously, because it's not. I mean, if you're not being pleased sexually, just break the hell up with them and leave them because, or try to go to try to go to like a counselor, whether it's a sex counselor or a regular counselor or whatever, and try to work through it. And if the other person is clearly not trying to improve on how they, um, you know, please you sexually, then by all means, break up with them and find somebody who will, because clearly they're not willing to even try. So, and like I said, as much as Iris doesn't want to believe this and want this to be true, sex is a big part of a relationship. It shouldn't be the only part like it is with Jamie and Elizabeth, but it's a big part of a relationship. And if you can't please your partner sexually, then, and if you're not even willing to try, then what are you doing in a relationship? I mean, because nobody's gonna abstain from sex their whole entire lives. I mean, unless of course you're like Iris, who's a virgin, but I mean, even then, you can't keep abstaining from sex forever. Because, and I feel like, based off of these two episodes, she's gonna try to abstain from sex, and it's like, I mean, you're not even, I mean, so it's like, I don't even know how she's gonna feasibly do any of this. So it's like, I mean, it's just weird. I don't know. Um, so Viviana then, tells them to share who they were as kids. And then she goes over to Jamie and Elizabeth. And they're arguing yet again, still about the incident at the racetrack. Um, so basically, Jamie's like, well, Elizabeth, it's so much easier for you to not care than to actually care and talk about what happened and feel remorse. So, and he's like, well, it's one thing to fight behind closed doors, but another to fight in public. But it's just like, but sir, you're the one who initiated that fight to begin with. You're the one who told her to just shut the hell up. So you're the one who initiated that argument to begin with. So it's like, I'm gonna need you to make it make sense, because that doesn't make any damn sense. Um, and then Viviana comes and tells them they needed to find better ways to communicate. Which clearly, by this point, well, I mean, Dr. or Pastor Cal, not only has Pastor Cal told them how to communicate better, but now Dr. Viviana is telling them that they need to talk, they need to continue, they need to communicate better and not hit below the belt. And they're not even doing that. And they're still doing it in episode fucking 12. And I'm just like, and I was going to wait to say this until I got into episode 12. But, I mean, at this point, look, y'all need to just call it quits and just leave each other the fuck alone. Because at this point, y'all can't even go 2 damn days without even fucking arguing about some petty ass shit. And it's like, when what could have easily have happened was you could have said it in a nicer tone and in nicer words. And at this point, y'all ain't even trying to communicate better. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Jamie is just, he's so easily irritated, and Well, I don't know. Maybe he's not easily irritated. It's just the fact that he lets things that he feels are irritating about Elizabeth get under his skin, and he holds it in and in and in and in and in. And then, of course, by the time he explodes, the little tiny ass molehill that, he had, say, several hours before has gotten like that big. And it's like, and then it just spills the hell over. And so, of course, then he just, whatever he said, whatever comes out of his mouth comes out as rude, very rude, and not that nice. And because of that, Elizabeth gets irritated and hurt, and so she hits below the fucking belt, and then it just keeps spinning out of control like that. And it's like, instead of him saying, well, I don't like the way you said that, or I don't like what you did just then, and in a nice way, instead of saying it like right when he gets irritated the very first time, he just lets it like build and build and build until it spirals out of control, and that's all on him. So it's like, I mean, at this point, they just need to break the hell up, divorce, and what the fuck ever. And I'm just like, I don't know why they're even still trying. Because, I mean, I understood after, like, the first one or two arguments, them staying together and trying to actually, like, communicate better. But by this point, this is like, they've literally gotten to an argument literally every single fucking week. Pretty much since their honeymoon. Ever since they went to their honeymoon. And so at this point, like, this is a toxic ass relationship, and they don't need to be together. They just need to separate and just leave each other the fuck alone. I'm so sorry, but not really that sorry. But they really need to just like leave each other alone, really. And I can honestly say the same thing about Matt and Amber, because, you know, I mean, anyway, I'll get back to them later in episode 12. So anyway, Matt and Amber, then are met with Viviana, and they tell her that, they took sex off the table, and they haven't really had any physical contact, even hugging and kissing, because they want to see if there's anything more than just sex, just like with Amber, or just like with Elizabeth and Jamie. And so then she visits with Greg and Deanna, and basically show them a clip of when Greg kept cutting her off, and they actually, figure out ways to effectively communicate when things like that happen. So, which, I mean, and they're doing, like, Greg and Deanna are pretty much the only ones I'm assuming are gonna ever be, still together after all of this. So, um, okay, so later that night, we see Keith and Iris are in bed, and she's like, well, you know what? I have a secret that I want to tell you. And essentially, her secret was she had change from whatever, like whether it was from lunch or whatever, in her hand. She didn't have anywhere else to put it, so she put it in her mouth and she swallowed a fucking quarter. And it's like, that's your fucking secret? Like, that's your motherfucking secret? Like, you could have kept that in the fucking vault, girl. Like, nobody really needs to know that. Like, it's just like, and even Keith was like, that's it? Like, the fuck are you talking about? That's not even that, like, that's not, like, really? Like, girl, what? Like, I mean, it was just like, I don't understand, like, why that was even something that, and that is like what Keith Lewis has been saying this entire time, where she's like not that emotionally mature, and meaning even when she's talking about sex, she's emotionally immature when she talks about sex, and she's even emotionally immature when it comes to secrets, like even just basic secrets. It's like, Like, I don't fucking care that you swallowed a quarter by accident. Like, that's not a secret. Like, did you really think that was a fucking secret? Like, did you really think so? That that was an appropriate secret? Because that really wasn't. Anyway, so the couples then all go to their hometowns, starting with Greg and Deanna, who go to Irmo, Deanna's hometown. And she takes him to a park where she had gone to take prom pictures for or at with the guy that she was in a past relationship with. And so she explains that she regarded this guy as her first love, and when they went to college, they grew apart, became mean and ugly towards each other, and so she realized she needed to forgive him to be able to move on. Then Matt and Amber go to Lillington, Matt's hometown, and to his childhood home. He expresses that he always had a childhood home until his parents divorced and they moved out of that house. And as a result of that, he stopped talking to his parents and sisters. Jamie and Elizabeth then go to Lexington, Elizabeth's hometown, and she opens up about her childhood home. Keith and Iris go to Greensboro, Keith's hometown, and after seeing his bedroom with all the trophies and whatnot, and after going to go get some dessert, or Iris going to go get some dessert, Keith's mom asks him if Iris makes him happy, and he says he doesn't know. Which I feel like, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like I'm kind of of two minds on that. It's like I feel like that's an appropriate response, but I also feel like that's not an appropriate response because I feel like maybe you should know this by now because in episode 12 they have literally like just like a week and a day left until decision day. So I feel like maybe you should know by then. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like me on the one hand, yes, it's a good response, but on the other hand, it's not. But anyway, so before I get to this last part, Deanna and Greg go to a golfing range for Deanna's birthday, where her family and friends are there. And I just think that was so sweet. And I think that is just part of the reason why I feel like, you know, Deanna and Greg are the most stable couple on this show. Because you know he's very thoughtful and he's very, you know, sweet and caring, and they don't seem to argue or have that many disagreements to begin with, and when they do, you can tell that they actually behind when the camera's not rolling, they actually work through whatever they had, you know, had a little argument about, and you could tell that they, you know, talk through it without the pressure of the cameras there. And and it's like I feel like that's where a lot of the other, like all the other couples have a problem, is that they're pressured to make up on camera and essentially say, oh well, I'm sorry, when they're really not. And it's clear that, especially with Elizabeth and Jamie and Amber and Matt, that, you know, they put on this performative act of saying, well, you know what, I'm sorry for X, Y, and Z, but then they're right back to arguing yet again, especially Jamie and Elizabeth, because, I mean, as we'll see in the beginning of episode 12, like, that shit was just, like, that didn't last. Their whole, you know, peace offering and or whatever didn't fucking last long. They didn't last long. And as we see at the end of episode 11, you know, as they're going all the way back to Charlotte, Elizabeth brings up the couples retreat that the next weekend, and how the last time everyone saw them, she showed her ass, and so Jamie was like, well, did you regret anything about that day at the racetrack? And she's like, no. And Jamie feels like Elizabeth doesn't ever have any remorse for anything for what she says or does. Um, and she should be, for especially for ruining everyone else's day. I mean, they were both at fault because she shouldn't have talked and over the instructor to begin with, so that nobody else could hear what the fuck he was saying. He should never had said just shut the hell up already, and she should have definitely shouldn't have let it ruin her day and brought her down, and therefore started acting like a little spoiled brat who didn't get his favorite cookie and said, "Oh, I'm just not gonna go do this now." Like, so you're gonna dictate what this motherfucker said to you? Like, anyway. So on to episode 12 called "Bear with Me." Um, so I'm gonna start with Jamie and Elizabeth. As I finished talking about them. Um, Jamie apparently had continued to fight with her after what we had seen um, on their way back to Charlotte. And and by this point, by this particular moment in episode 12, that was 4 days beforehand. So before he, is talking in his current confessional about how he hasn't been home that entire time. So he hasn't been home in 4 fucking days. He hasn't been home in 4 fucking days. Um, so it's just like, I mean, like I said before, this shit's just not working. It's clearly not working, and you just need to just call it quits because you two keep, especially Jamie. He gets a little irritated by what Elizabeth does or says, and then he just lets it fester because she keeps saying and doing things that are annoying, and over the course of several hours it just builds and builds and builds and builds and builds because she just keeps doing things that are annoying and shit to him. And so because of that, it just festers, and it gets to a boiling point and it explodes over. He says something mean and nasty to her, and then in turn she says something mean and nasty to him, because he just keeps saying mean and nasty things to her to begin with. And it's just like this, like, clearly you two don't know how to communicate at all, and you two refuse to communicate because you've had Pastor Cal and Dr. Viviana both tell you to communicate better, and you still don't. So clearly you two don't want to do it, and so therefore you should just need to break the fuck up. Like, I just don't understand. So Elizabeth asks him to meet with him. When they finally sit down, she's like, "How have the last 4 days been?" He's like, "They've been good because there's been no bad negative energy around me." And she's like, "Well, are you gonna come back home?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm here, aren't I?" She's like, "Well, the door has been open the last 4 nights for you to come back." And he's like, "Well, I know, but you've been nasty to me, so why would I come back when all you do is be nasty to me?" Well, it's a two-way street, dude. It's a two-way street. Like, you're both nasty to each other. I mean, you essentially started. So it's not like... Anyway, so... And then so he's like, "Well, now I want to take sex off the table because I feel like there's been a lot of miscommunication about that." And it's like, well, now you do? Like, Elizabeth was literally telling your ass or asking you to do that, like, what? Like, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and like now all of a sudden, like, you're just yeah, you know what, shut up and go away. I just can't with you anymore. I really can't with you. So I'm gonna need you to just leave me the fuck, like, get off my damn screen and leave. So anyway, so Greg and Deanna have this little cute double date with her sister and her boyfriend of 3 years. And it's just really cute. So I mean, it's not. I mean, all they were doing is throwing axes at a wooden board. And what's funny was that Deanna and her sister could easily throw the axe and get it to stick into the wooden board each and every time they threw it, but when when Greg and Deanna's sister's boyfriend went to go do it, they couldn't throw it worth a damn. And it's like I'm not mad at Deanna and her sister for trying to get out the fucking way because I mean that fucking axe kept bouncing off and getting thrown every which damn way. Now none of it hurt because you can't throw it properly. So, anyway, so Amber then had we see Amber have dinner with her best friend Raven, um, and she's explaining like in some aspects the relationship is better and others it's not, and she doesn't want him to live the bachelor lifestyle even though he's out with his friends every single day, and Raven's like, you girl, you deserve better than that, much fucking better. And you don't deserve to be second choice or a backup option, which is very true. Like, she doesn't deserve that. And that's basically how he's treating her still. It's like, yeah, I mean, and she explains a little bit later in the episode that, like, when the couples go to the retreat in the cabin in the woods, that, because she explains this to Iris when they go on this hike, that, Matt, at first started to respect what she wanted and came back at the specific times that she wanted him to be back at, but then he fell off of that again, and it's just like, I mean, girl, like, why are you putting up with that shit? Like, he's clearly not holding up his end of the bargain. And he's literally out with his friends every single day. Like, I mean, are you kidding me? I understand that, you want some time alone to, hang with your friends and to decompress after a long day, or whatever. But literally every single fucking day, you're doing that. Literally every single fucking day, like. You can't even spend some time with your fucking wife. Just like, okay. Um. Anyway, so then, with there only being 8 days left, all the couples are packing up for their couples retreat in the woods. Um. And so Deanna and Greg get there first. And pick their bedroom first. Elizabeth and Jamie get there second, and so the other couples don't get there for several hours. It's after dark when Iris, Keith, Matt, and Amber all come in, and it's after the fact that Deanna, Greg, Jamie, and Elizabeth all made food or dinner that they get there. So. And so the next day, they all get homework to sit with each other and share what they've learned so far about not only each other but marriage, and their spouses and all that. So, and then after that, the couples, decide to spend alone time with one another to, get to like just spend time with each other or get out of their comfort zones. And one of the couples, Greg and Deanna, go foraging for food in the wilderness and try different like insects and stuff like that. And Greg actually, is a trooper and decides to eat the bugs and all that and stuff like that. And I think there's this one thing called witch's butter. It looks kind of like orangey yellow. So yeah. Then back at the cabin, the girls go off by themselves to talk, and then the guys go off to talk by themselves, and yada yada yada. And I didn't even write down what they said because it's basically regurgitating everything that they've said beforehand. So it's like I don't really care. So on next episode, everyone's still questioning whether or not they want to stay married. As decision day is less than a week away, and we finally get the episode where we saw that future scene at the beginning of this season of someone, and it looks like it's Raven who tells her this, that he was out at like a club or bar or whatever, and he saw Matt with another girl, and this is where um, we see Amber crying and all that. That's the scene that we see her at. And then, so like I said, I'm done with predicting whether or not these are actually going to stay married. Jamie and Elizabeth. I think they are. It's just a matter of when. I don't know, because I thought they would have decided to call it quits a long time ago, and clearly they haven't. Um, so all I'm gonna say is, the only predictions I'm gonna make are whether or not the couples actually stay together in the long run. Um, Obviously, Jamie and Elizabeth are not gonna stay together. I don't think they are. As of right now, I think Iris and Keith are going to. Um, Greg and Deanna, obviously, I feel like they're the strongest couple as of right now, and they are going to stay together even after the 3 month reunion episode, or 2 month reunion episode, or whatever. Um, and then Matt and Amber, I don't think they're gonna stay together either. So two couples I don't think they're gonna stay together, and two couples I do think they're gonna stay together as of right now. But otherwise, that's really about it, and that's all I have for this episode. Bye.